Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Small Success Podcast. We are continuing in our series of interviewing small business owners. Let me introduce myself. I'm Pam Downing. I'm the Operations and Marketing Strategist here at Larison Media. I'm not alone in the studio. I'm going to have my guests introduce themselves. Let's start with Drew.
As she said, my name is Drew Larison. I'm the founder and creative director of Larison Media. And as always, Pam, thank you for having me back.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It's
Glad
really
you're
nice
here.
of you.
Glad you're here.
Full of grace to invite me back. It's really nice.
And our other guest.
Yeah, I'm Billy Cardwell. I'm the founder and president of Aurora Financial Strategies here in Kokomo, Indiana. Just a local financial advisor helping people, members of our community, family members, friends, kind of take the stress away and the anxiety away from money and hopefully build the life of their dreams.
Awesome. Okay, well, we are really going to dive in. We have all the questions for you, Billy, today. Well, to start, tell us a little bit about who you are. I mean, you mentioned You're from Kokomo, and then I'd love to hear, how did Aurora Financial Strategies come into existence?
Sure, yeah. So I grew up here in town. I'm a Kokomo kid, got away just long enough for college, came back, and my dad was an electrical contractor, really successful electrical contractor in town. I'd worked there in the summers, found out pretty quickly I would be a terrible electrical contractor. So really was interested in finance, the stock market, money, how people kind of interact and kind of the psychology behind it. Took a job right out of school creating financial plans for other advisors. I found out, it's kind of hard to go up to somebody and say, hey, I graduated last week. Let's talk about your life savings, right?
Sure,
that doesn't work
Let's
very
talk
well.
about retirement. Kid, you're 19. Yeah, I know.
Well, I can grow a beard. We got that going
Sure,
for
all
us,
right, yeah.
But, working behind the scenes, I got to work with about 180 advisors across the country creating financial plans for their clients. And so I got to see a lot of things that probably a 22-year-old kid shouldn't have seen in terms of like, what would you do in these situations? What would you do if somebody has this much in debt or they're this far behind in their retirement savings? What are the options for them? And so spent about 10 years creating financial plans, did really well within the company, continued to get promoted. But when we kind of sat down and decided, what do we want this to be going forward? I really like helping people that I like. And I enjoy helping people do the things they want to do. And so as we continued to have discussions, it became pretty apparent to me that I wanted to do that full time.
Okay.
I was allowed to do that on the side, and so I was able to grow a little bit of a practice that way. But back in 2016, kind of made the decision that this is all I want to do. I want to meet with my own friends, my own clients, my own companies, and just help them along the way. And so 2016, we launched Aurora Financial Strategies. It was kind of a leap because I went from a salary that was pretty good and a little bit of commission along the side or fees that we collected to solely we are what we are. And, at the time, it was fun, and I had a kind of a projection for where we were going to go and how much we were going to grow by. And it was scary to take that leap, especially right away, just from taking all of the guarantees of income away. But man, we've grown exponentially faster than what I thought we would. And so now we deal, specifically in our Kokomo office, we deal with about 400 families.
Wow.
Have about mid-40s in our 401k platform that we do. So represent about 44 different companies in our 401ks. And I mean, I wake up every day and I talk to my friends and we solve problems. So it's a great gig.
Wow. That's awesome.
It's living the dream, folks.
Seriously, that's living a dream. And really, you're 3 years in. I mean, to see that kind of success for a small business that's really impressive.
Yeah.
It, word of mouth has been huge. We have a terrible joke that we say if you think we did a good job, please tell somebody. If we did a bad job, please keep it to yourself and this will go fine.
Yeah,
right. So,
sure.
Once people kind of got the idea, cause I've been around Kokomo for a long time. So once people kind of got the idea that this is what we're doing, and I have a little bit of experience with the 10 years across the board of creating plans for others. There was kind of a slow kind of a snowball that kind of continued to grow and grow and grow. And now we probably meet with, a handful of people every week or so, just that wouldn't necessarily be considered clients originally, but they have a friend that uses us that they've said something nicely, or we happen to use Larison Media, and it's been very effective in getting us clients or getting us at least a seat at the table in front of people to have a conversation. And most people want to invest with somebody that they like, but they also want to invest with somebody that knows what's going on. And so the big key for us is kind of explaining, we know what we're doing, but also we have to dial some of that back and explain it in terms that the average person knows. Right. So not everybody is a finance major and an econ minor and knows exactly what an alpha or a beta of a portfolio is.
Which is why you exist.
Right.
Because not everybody is. Yeah.
But they do want people that are taking care of them and know what they're doing. So when we explain things, we try to bring it into a level that they can understand. But then also when behind the scenes, when we're doing our work, there is a lot more that goes into it that we don't necessarily have to describe, but at the same time still need to know in terms of, like investing and types of savings and how the tax breaks work and those type of things, so that we are putting our clients in the best kind of position to be successful.
Something you said that was really interesting to me was word of mouth is huge for you. We had somebody else on the podcast earlier this week that's kind of like that medical world, where compliance and how you're allowed to talk about marketing wise is very strict. And that's the same story for you. And one of the hurdles you jump through is that, because when you say like, your biggest thing is word of mouth, because you're not allowed to really say a lot of like what you've done. Similar to like medical world, you can't go out there and say this pill will 100% for sure cure this.
Right.
You're not allowed to say the statements of like, I will 100% for sure make you $1 billion.
Right.
I'm going to make you can't guarantee things.
If anybody says that, you need to run. Go find somebody else.
Well, honestly,
there's no guarantee.
I've probably said this to you. I do that in the marketing world. Like there are so many people in the marketing world that give the marketing world a bad name because they're guaranteeing things. They're guaranteeing like our software will give you 10 times more leads a month. I'm like, I'm sorry, you can't guarantee that.
Right.
But in your world, it's really difficult to do really good testimonial marketing, because you can't put out, testimonials really, because in a way your compliance people look at that as like you're, supporting or encouraging what they're saying to make it seem like you're guaranteeing it. But what I'm getting to is like, a common theme when we're doing these interviews with small business owners is the idea of like how important trust is to a small business. I feel like every interview we're going to do, this is going to be brought up in some sort of way. Trust is huge. We've talked to maybe like plumbers or HVAC people or, anybody to do with your home services, cleaning, home services type of company. Right. Trust is huge because referrals is their biggest point. Susan tells Jill, Jim tells Joe, whatever it is. In your world, that's huge because you're literally dealing with people's money. Yeah. Where trust is, people have to trust you so much. So tell us about like those hurdles you've had to jump.
Sure.
In the hardcore world of compliance that your business is in, and how you've jumped some hurdles to get around there, to build trust within your people, and how to encourage people to do word of mouth for you, which is difficult on its own anyway, because you don't want to be that business like tell your friends, tell your friends, tell your friends. Right, you don't want to be that guy. But at the same time, with the hurdles you have to jump through, that has to be an important thing to do.
Well, and the crazy kind of beginning of all of that is the topic that we are discussing is money, right? And there is very rarely a more serious topic.
Their money.
And a more guarded topic. I mean, it's a very taboo thing to talk about still in a lot of different areas. And younger people are a little bit more open to just, hey, here's what I have, dump it out there.
Because that's not as much.
Well, that and so before and even still a little bit, if you think about it, like nobody really comes out and says, hey, I make $50,000 a year. Right. And so there needs to be a level of trust that we're going to take that information and we're going to use it appropriately and not share that specific information with anybody. Right. And so what I cannot do, even compliance wouldn't let me in the first place, but what I specifically cannot do is if Drew comes into my office, I turn around and I say to everybody in the community, hey, have you heard what Drew's doing? Right. Because I've lost all the trust in that. I'm asking you very specific questions, and I need to know information about you to build the best financial plan that we can. But at the same time, I also need to be able to keep that in. And so we as a part of that same process, we talk about your information is yours. You are more than welcome to tell anybody and everybody what we've done together as specific as you want to. The most that anybody will ever get from me is that, yes, you're a client, or yes, you've been in the office. It's your information to share. It's not my information to share for everybody.
Yeah, you couldn't police that anyway.
No, and specifically to compliance, we cannot come out and say, hey, Drew Larison is my favorite client. He's awesome. He does all this stuff with me, right? I cannot do that. But what I
mean,
can't
you
do.
could.
Well, I might be able to say it in passing like I just did there. But at the same time.
I was going to say you just did.
That's
so
fair. That's
it's
fair.
out there.
But what I can't do is I can't go in and kind of have those
Sure.
automatic testimonials where Sam S. signs off as best financial advisor ever, right? Because there'd be a lot of compliance regulators up my hindquarters on that one, just to make sure that we're not doing things we shouldn't do.
Which compared to those other industries I was talking about, like plumbing, cleaning, whatever, home services is really what really hits my head hard when I think of like how testimonials are really important, and trust is really, because you're inviting people into your home, your private space.
Sure.
Like those industries thrive off of that type of marketing, which is testimonial, like posting a graphic of, here's what Jill said about our services, or Facebook reviews, Google reviews, all those type of things. They thrive off that, which you could probably, if it was allowed, it'd be huge for you. Like somebody is saying something, they help me, even if results aren't mentioned, they listen.
Sure.
They don't judge. They're open to everybody. Like you can't even do that. You can't really even have any type of testimonial, but if you could, it would be an amazing thing.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a catch-22 on that, because some people don't want that information out there anyway, right? Some people are still very guarded with their own financial information. They want us to maximize their financial plan, but they also don't want everybody else to know everything that's going on and why they have, like you think about people with debt. People don't want everybody to know how much money they owe everybody else. And so there's just some things that even if we could, I wouldn't share that information, just from the standpoint of it's our clients' information to share. And so it'd be nice to be able to do that with the people that say, yeah, I want you to talk about me and talk about how much, how you've turned my life around, and we've saved $150,000 in what would have been interest because we're out of debt now and we're not paying 20% in interest. We're actually investing that money.
Yeah.
I can't do that though.
It's so tough.
I know.
And I didn't know if we were going to throw that out there, but you're a client of Larison Media.
Yeah.
It's hard. Our role, it makes it more difficult. We've got to definitely be more creative. And I always like to say creativity is the biggest variable. And that's so true with your account. Creative is so important to come up with different ways. Cause the low hanging fruit is there so good and the fruit looks so good. If we could just say, oh, you have this awesome testimonial, this would look so good. We can't do it. We can't even enter the garden to grab the fruit off the tree.
Right.
So
it's the route we've kind of taken to kind of help combat that is our goal when we're marketing is I want people to understand, or at least having a general idea of who I am before they sit in front of me. And so, when the content we do push out is information, facts,
personal brand
tips,
to enhance the corporate brand.
And education.
Right. And so if somebody knows who I am either through a referral or checking our website, checking social media to say who is Aurora Financial Strategies, when they sit down in front of us, if they have a general idea of who we are, that trust is already at least established.
It's established, yeah.
And so we can kind of get into the weeds a little bit quicker to see, all right, what would really be a good idea for building out your financial plan? Because we already have that trust established, number one. And number two, hopefully if they've read through some of the things we've posted, we kind of know what we're talking about here or there. And so that immediate bond is already there. And so that's essentially how we combat that is, we can't say Jimmy Joe uses us and we do really well, but what we can say is in these certain situations that we've come through before, people understand what we're doing, and going forward, we can probably help you as well.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'd love to go back to the beginning a little bit. I just love to hear about the name. How did you name your business, and what does that mean?
Yeah, a lot of financial firms are a last name, right? And I figured that nobody would really want to work for Cardwell Wealth Management. My daughter's name is Aurora.
Okay.
And so Aurora means dawn. You think the Aurora Borealis and the cool little night lights and all that.
The Northern Lights, right?
The Northern Lights, yes, got me. And so it was a way of naming the company after my family without specifically naming it Cardwell Wealth Management. And so as we continue to grow and as we bring people on, Aurora Financial Strategies, I feel like people would want to work for Aurora much more than they'd want to work for some guy named Cardwell.
That's awesome.
And so it was kind of a way to tie that back. Now, I also have a son. And so Gavin, he's in trouble.
Which he didn't when he named it, right?
He was just born.
Just born.
Yeah. And so I've got to come up with some other company somewhere along the way. And
We can start
Gavin,
something.
I'm in so much trouble.
Gavin's
he figures
gears,
that out.
we'll come up with something.
So yeah, it was a way of tying everything back to us without people feeling like they were working for some guy named Cardwell.
Got it. Okay. That is so cool. Talk to us about, you shared a little bit of the variables and maybe some of the challenges along the way, but
Sure.
tell us about some of the successes that you've had. I mean, one of them that I've already heard is the word of mouth. That is gold. I mean, even for our business, word of mouth referral is, it's that trust, it's that network, it's the people you know. But maybe
it secures so much too. If like word of mouth is going, that lines up and shows so much other things are working well.
Right.
No one is going to, I mean, if it's a good word of mouth, there's bad word of mouth
we want
too.
it to be positive.
Yeah, but if it's good, positive word of mouth, it lines up like everything else is going really well.
So talk to us about maybe some of the other successes that you've seen as a business owner in the growth of Aurora Financial.
The coolest part about what I do is I help people kind of realize their dreams, or I help people more efficiently get to where they want to be. And in a lot of these cases, they're my friends, right? And so I want to do very similar things to what they want to do. Mm-hmm. And so putting them in a position to take those vacations, putting them in a position to get out of debt and buy the house that they want that has the pool that I can come swim in. But like giving them the best chance to succeed has been a lot of fun for me. My industry is very rewarding if you do your job and you do it well. But the financial incentive for being a financial advisor is not the only reason why I'm doing it. There are a lot of people that I care about and want to see do the things that are like on their list. Checks the things off their list that I get to help them accomplish because of the way we can streamline things, the way we've gotten people out of debt, the way we've gotten investment accounts started, setting aside money for retirement, maximizing what their employer will offer them. There's been a lot of satisfaction in that because these are people that I like and people that I care about. And so my biggest success hasn't necessarily been the number of clients that we've got, or the number of assets that we manage or anything like that. It's kind of the smiles on the faces and the goals that we've achieved in the time that we've been doing this, and the goals that we've set up to be achieved in the future.
And I feel like that's something that really sets your business apart, but also kind of shows the heart of an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You started something different for a reason. I mean, there's other financial companies that I'm sure out there who legitimately care about their people, but that to me really shows like the heart behind why you do what you do. Okay. So thinking back to when you first began and assuming we have other small business owners listening,
Sure.
What are some tips or pieces of advice or habits that have helped you along the way that you would give to another budding entrepreneur?
Sure. Man, it goes fast. It goes faster than you can even possibly imagine. And, we had a business plan in place when we got started that essentially had everything laid out. A little secret I'll give you is life doesn't always go as planned.
Okay.
And so having some flexibility early on was huge for us in terms of not only financially, but how our day works, right? And so we've really, as we've grown, we've kind of specialized a little bit more in what we do with the retirement plans. So the 401ks, simple IRAs, those type of things. But the initial people that I thought I was always going to be reaching out to aren't the only people I'm reaching out to, because others have come in and said, hey, I need some help. And I'm not a really big fan of turning down people if they ask for help. And so we've had the type of client has been different, and we were flexible enough to adjust and adapt to that. The other thing that I would say is hire somebody to do the stuff you want to do, probably, or the stuff you don't want to do, probably before you're ready. I know personally I am probably the worst person in the world when it comes to paperwork. And so before we were even ready in terms of financially, I hired somebody to do all the paperwork, spend a lot of time talking to the clients about getting in for appointments and those type of things. And so that's Anna for us. Anna has been awesome. She does the things that I specifically don't want to do so that I can focus on growing our business, getting in front of people, creating their financial plan, and helping them succeed. Mm-hmm. I don't know, like looking back, spending the money on an employee with the income that we were making at the time seems ridiculous.
Sure.
Absolutely. I was on pace to make like $1,100 the first year because
Sure.
I was giving it all away quote unquote, giving it all away to an employee and software and rent and those type of things.
Sure.
But that's what allowed us to get in front of more people and grow the business. So the earlier you can get to a spot where you can focus on the things you want to do, get excited to go to work every day, and shift the things that you don't want to do to somebody that is good at those type of things, the better.
Sound familiar?
Did you do that?
It's the reason Pam's in
That's
this room.
why my job is my job. So
I was very open. Like our first ever conversations sounded just like that.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
So also what I heard in there is a little element of risk. Or maybe not a little.
Yeah.
Big, yeah.
So big risk.
Yeah.
There are some things you can do along the way to before you make a jump like that to kind of help subsidize that risk. And so we had money saved up alongside that if I wasn't very good at what I was doing, I thought I was going to be okay. I'm pretty humblest guy I know, but I thought we were going to be successful.
Sure.
I didn't know necessarily how quickly, but my wife and I did a really good job of setting aside kind of a kitty that if things were slower to pick up, we could tap into if we needed to.
Yeah.
Not everybody can necessarily go that route.
It's like he's a finance guy or something like that.
Yeah.
He's planning it out.
Sometimes we practice what we preach, which is good. But the other thing was I knew at the time I was 29 or 30 years old. I knew if I was really bad at this, I could go find a job.
You've got time.
Yeah, and I was still marketable to be or hireable to do something in the industry anyway. And so if there was a time to do it, that was the time.
Yeah.
And so we had a couple of fallback options if we needed them, and thankfully we didn't. And now I'm essentially doing what I love. Talk to my friends all day. We solve some problems.
It's really interesting. I was listening to something yesterday, and it reminded me of kind of what you're saying, because really what you did was bet on yourself.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's you talk about risk. I mean, betting on your own self, your own skills, and taking that chance that like you think you can do what in your head you think you can do is something that's really rare in the whole business world right now when it comes to startups and entrepreneurs, because there's these things called like VCs now, venture capitalists, and like all over the world, if people want to start a business, they can like maybe find a VC, and like that's the venture capitalist will invest in your business, and it's lowering that risk of betting on yourself because it's not your money.
Right.
You know, and like I love like this, somebody who was really funny. The video was like, I don't know, get a loan. You know, like I know it's this crazy idea, but our world's turned into like, if you want to start a business, just find a venture capitalist and they'll be your loan and you don't risk anything. But I feel like when you're going against yourself, when you're betting against yourself, it means a lot more, you know, and it's refreshing to hear that, because like the world of business in America, like if you want to start something, just find somebody to loan you money and like lose some, you know, equity. That's what the trade-off is. Yeah. Or, I don't know, just do it yourself. Save some money, like hustle something and then save some money and bet on yourself instead of just on somebody else's money. It's just refreshing.
I'm a big fan of having additional levers to pull, right? And so and what I mean by that is if things don't go quite as planned, you have something that you can do to either help along the way or a different route to take. And so, you know, like when we first started the business, we never really needed to tap into it, but we opened a line of credit just in case I couldn't make payroll for a week or something. So that would have been a lever I could have pulled as the business is continuing to grow. And that way it gives you the ability to do it the right way. There's my industry specifically, there are ways to earn a lot of a future income up front, but then you don't get anything on the back end. And there are ways to spread it out a little bit more evenly. There are people in my industry that do it, and they do it for the wrong reasons. And so they'll sell a client something, they'll earn their commission, and you'll never hear from them ever again. That's not, I want to be doing this for 35 more years. That's not how I'm building this practice, right? And so the word of mouth and the positive message was important for me. So doing it right is very important for me. And so having those tools to use or those levers to pull if things don't go as planned was really important. Yeah. Fortunately, we didn't need to use some of them, but they were there as a fallback.
Our world, going back to like what I was saying, a lot of people in the marketing world, they'll guarantee type of things. Right. Our world's very similar, where somebody will sell something in a way like, oh, use our software, and you'll whatever, your leads will get 10 times or whatever. Just sign this contract for 12 months. You know, you sign this contract, you pay up front. Oh, you save money if you buy all 12 months up front rather than doing monthly. Oh, okay, well, that's cool. I'll save some money. But then you never hear from them again. Rather than me or Laris and me, we'd like to be up front. Like, hey, this is a risk. We're it's kind of, figuring out, there's no guarantees. However, we talk to you all the time. Like, we want a relationship with you. We have constant communication.
Sure.
I want to be your marketing department for forever. Like, that's our goal, is to grow with you, not just to get you to sign a contract and not talk to you for another 12 months when it's time to renew or something like that. So
yeah, when the way I kind of see it, and the way we structure our practice for most of our clients, is as our clients do better, we do better. And if our clients are doing worse, or if their accounts are dropping, our income goes down as well. We'd rather be on the same side of the table that way.
Accountability, yeah.
Yeah, and I would like to say that it doesn't matter. We are going to work just as hard no matter what, and I like to think that that's the case. But even if it wasn't the case, we are now on the same side of the table as our clients. We would like them to do better so that we can do better as well.
Yeah, makes sense. So this podcast, right, is all about small business owners and trying to provide value to them and trying to give them tips and tricks and insight and everything. Finances are a stressful thing for a small business owner. Sure. Like we've talked about, when you start, there's not a lot there, and like trying to figure out how to operate everything. As the financial guy in the room, can you give us, like 3 of your top financial tips for the average small business owner out there? Because I feel like, and that's the thing about this podcast too, we want to create like a space where you can come and relate and hear reality of small businesses. And I've been there. I know I've talked to you about this in the past. Like, I have no reference of what doing good is, doing poorly is, how much should I be making? What should my margins be? Because we're in a unique space in general. So I ask you those questions all the time because I just have zero reference of it. I have no reference of other businesses' books. How much these people that I think are really successful, what are they actually doing?
Yeah.
But just 3 general tips to ease the mind or provide value to that business owner out there that's kind of on an island on their own when they're looking at their books, and they have no idea if they're doing well or not, or if they're doing poorly, if they should shut the doors, if they should expand. Any type of tips and tricks to make those decisions moving forward.
Sure. Obviously, my first one, being a financial planner, this is going to kind of sound a little bit corny, but I would say have a plan, right? Mm-hmm. There are a lot of tools and information out there for you to be able to see what do you need to do in your specific industry to be successful. And so you can use a little bit of that, use a little bit of your personal experience, come up with something that is a approachable plan to say, this is what we need to do, this is how we need to grow to be successful. And I'll give you a little secret, is that it's not going to go as you have it mapped out, right? But It's a lot easier to figure out where you are.
Sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a bad way.
And you can make a small change one way or the other, and that is infinitely easier than starting over every time something doesn't go right. So having a plan to continue to grow, to continue to get the business where you want is probably one of the most important things you can do. Secondly, hire or find relationships with professionals around you that make your life easier. Whether that's a financial advisor, an accountant, an employee. Allow people that specialize in those specific things, that are good at what they do, to take some of the stress of the business off of your shoulders, right? You don't necessarily start a business to be an HR director. You don't necessarily start a business because you want to, all you want are the tax breaks. You want to start a business to grow and grow correctly, right? And so hire the people to take more stress, the stress that you have, away from you, and allow you to do the things that you'd like to do. What we call that is we try our best to help business owners sleep at night, right? There are stresses that come with business that you can't possibly prepare for until you have the business. But the less stress that you have, the more you can focus on growing it and growing it the right way, the better that your experience will be.
It's that whole concept of outsourcing. Mm-hmm. I feel like we've talked about this before here in the office.
Right.
Like, the things that we are passionate about are not necessarily finances or doing taxes or payroll or any of those things. So that's a great tip.
Sure. And, so the third thing I would say, outside of hiring the right type of people, would be allow your employees to do some things. A lot of small business owners are very controlling on their business. And if you have the right people in the right chairs, allow them to be the right people. And sometimes that means giving a little bit more freedom to do things that are in the best interest of your business, but you've hired them for a specific reason. You're paying them for a reason. Allow them to do their job. And putting them in a position to do their job effectively, sometimes that means review the benefits that you have for them. Obviously, salary is important, but there are other things that keep people in those chairs. Being happy at work is important. Knowing that some things are taken care of, whether that's medical insurance or retirement planning or vacation time, work-life balance, all those type of things. The less that you can get your employees stressed about things outside of the office, right? And the more that their life they feel like is taken care of, the better that they will be working for you in your business.
Awesome.
Those are great tips.
The first thing you were saying about the first tip, I can't keep going back to, and this is a big thing for me right now. I don't know. I'm getting through this podcast, and then I'm talking to more and more business owners about just life in general lately. And I'm learning the whole word of success is really interesting to me. And we've said it a few times on the podcast. Success, a lot of times in America, is defined by simply money.
Yeah.
Like that is like, if you're making whatever a stupid amount of money in your head is, like you're successful. And I keep like, that's such a dangerous thing. Because like another thing you were saying is like, you probably didn't get into business to be an HR director or, you know, all the other things you hate. But like at the same time, I feel like in America, we worship the idea of like just working yourself to the bone. And if you're doing that, you're looked at as a role model, and, you know, then you're like a mentor to someone. But that's such a short-term thing that is just going to lead to a crash and burn. And then what you're saying is like hire people to do the things you don't like to do. So smart.
Well, and, you know, success is another slippery slope because it's very common to try and compare yourself to others.
Yeah. Especially like I was saying, when in a small business world, you have zero reference of what everybody, like you could be so jealous of one business that you think is so much more successful than maybe they actually are, but you got inside their books and they're a disaster.
Yeah. And
it's such a scary thing to look at and like constantly comparing yourself to.
And you think too, like some people have more expenses than others. Some people, they can live on a lower income than others. I mean, there's, when you start comparing yourself to others and think that they have the same situation that you do, you immediately lost.
Yeah.
Because there's just so many things that are different in everybody's scenario. Everybody's walk is so much different. So what's successful for me and what's successful for the two of you could be something that's just absolutely astronomically different.
Yeah.
I enjoy spending time with my family. I don't want to be the guy that's doing 80 hours a week at work. I did that for a while before we had kids, and it was cool to get experience, but I didn't really have a whole lot of a social life for a while.
Yeah.
I want to find that balance. I know I need to work and help people do the things they want to do. I also want to enjoy it. And so it's kind of neat. What I'm doing now isn't really work sometimes. A lot of times it's just hanging out with people, having lunch and talking through problems. But when you start to compare yourself to other people in my industry, or if I start comparing myself to other industries, there's no way I can win that battle. Somebody will always have something that's better than what we do.
Sure.
And you put a lot of unnecessary stress on yourself that way, just because you're always trying to get to the next level and figuring, like what's next, what's best, what do we do? And you do want to continue to grow. You want to grow the right way. When you start comparing to people with different sets of circumstances, you're never going to be where you think you should be.
Well, in my head, it's like a subcategory of like self-awareness. Like figuring out what you actually want to define success as. Right. And really being intentional about that and really writing down that, whatever that is to you. If it is like having a business that I enjoy that has happy employees and I'm home by 5:30 to hang out with my kids. Right. That could be success to you. Or I mean, whatever it is, if it is revenue of $5 million, great. That's success to you. But it worries me, honestly, just the entrepreneurial community, that we're defining success as simply money or defining success as simply just working until you're just exhausted and burnt out.
Sure.
Right.
I want to stop celebrating that in a way, because it's setting up so many people that maybe want to become an entrepreneur to think, well, that's what it is. And they seem to be happy because they're posting a picture of themselves next to a Lamborghini on Instagram, but then they're going to get into it and just hate their lives because they're going to realize the people that are posting those pictures, it's probably not their Lamborghini. They were just walking down the street and it was there, or they rented it for an hour, and they're going to realize the reality of it. And I'm setting up future entrepreneurs for just disaster. Yep. So like the importance of defining success for you while not giving a crap about whatever people's definitions of it is as well. Yep. So important.
Yeah. Like between one of my common themes when I'm meeting with clients is that very conversation we just had. it's easy to look at somebody and say, hey, this guy has $100,000 more in his 401k than I do. He's so much better. Yeah, but his specific plan and what he will need in the future may be exponentially different than what you need.
Right.
And between that and there's another, in my industry specifically, there is a hindsight is 2020. You know, I should have bought 100 extra shares of Amazon 15 years ago. As soon as you start playing that game, you're going to put yourself in a lot
you
of
always
trouble.
say, like, if I knew what the stock market was going, you have a famous line.
I would love to be able to tell you what's going to happen tomorrow in the stock market.
Yeah.
And if I could tell you what's going to happen tomorrow, not only would I be retired, you'd all be retired with me, and we'd be having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, nobody knows that. That's the whole thing. And so we need to adjust, and we need to plan for what we can plan for, right? The amount of risk you can take, the expenses that you pay that'll determine at least a little bit how successful your plan will be. I can control those things. And so making sure you're taking an appropriate amount of risk, making sure we keep your costs low, the market is going to do what it's going to do. And over time, it has gone up, right? But that doesn't mean it goes up every day. Unfortunately, you don't start at 10, get to 20, and it's just 1 every single year, 10, 11, 12, 13, all the way up to 20. It's going to go from 10 to 14, down to 8, up to 17.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not a straight line. And so let's control what we can control. There are variables out there that you have the ability to control. We have to control those. And then the variables that are out there that we cannot control, those are now minimized because we've taken care of almost everything else.
Yeah. So, so you have to have that self-awareness to be able to talk to yourself and define what success is actually for you.
Right.
But then another thing you said is, like, have self-awareness and be intentional about figuring out what do you actually enjoy doing most inside your business, so you can find out what you could be doing every single day, and then hire and outsource, whether it's internal or external, hire out for that. So, I mean, but that's a hard thing as well. So, I mean, yeah, the entrepreneur life, the first few years or whatever you're set up, you probably are going to be finding yourself doing everything until you can take that risk like you did to hire an Anna, to start covering things. But you had that awareness and the intentionality to time to find that awareness. You hated paperwork. You don't like doing paperwork.
I miss a signature every time.
Yeah. Well, there's so many. Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, like, I had that awareness. I am not a detail person. I appreciate so much the idea of a process and a system. Love it. I can't create one, or I'm horrible at following one. Hence Pam being on the other side of the table for me. That's her world. She loves that. She loves being organized. She likes detail. She likes process and system. But finding that self-awareness to figure out, what do you actually love doing in your business? Figure that out, and then go from there.
What's the reason you started the business in the first place?
Yeah. Well, there's like that good quote.
Passion.
When you're struggling, try to remember why you started in the first place.
Yeah. Right.
That's where you need to be working most. And I don't care, like, you start a restaurant and you start because you love cooking. Maybe that means you're the chef. But then you're outsourcing the bookkeeping. You're outsourcing all the other stuff that isn't chef work,
right?
To do that. But, like, finding out what that actually is, and really your goal in the first 5 years is finding out what that is and how to build it enough where you can afford people to do the stuff you don't want to do.
Exactly.
Like, that's a huge thing. Yeah.
Okay, Billy, as we wrap up here, we have one final question we're asking every small business owner who's a guest on this series. And that is, what is one small thing that you have done that you can contribute to your success? So it could be serious. It could be silly.
Sure.
It could be a decision, maybe a daily habit. It could be anything.
Right. I think it's an interesting question because there are a lot of things along the way that attributed to success, but I think it all goes back to one thing, and that's just be genuine. Be you. People want to connect with other people.
Yeah.
And they want people that have similar interests, but they also want people to care, right? And as long as you care, as long as you're upfront with people on who you are, how things work, be yourself, you'll have a much better connection with people in your community. That's how, like, the referrals keep coming in, is because people know who I am. Mm-hmm. They know if they tell somebody to come see me, who I'm going to be when they come and sit down from me. And so they're not afraid to say, hey, this guy will take care of you. Come in and talk to him. Be yourself. Be genuine. Other things seem to work themselves out when that's the case. You don't have to always be on and be somebody that you're not. Be yourself. Do the things you want to do. Take care of people. All of a sudden, the business seems to work out.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I feel like we learned a lot.
Did you have fun?
I had a blast. I appreciate you guys having me. I look forward to, this as this podcast continues to grow. I look forward to all the episodes and hearing from people that I care about and respect, and members of our community that are doing everything that we say we're doing too. So it'll be interesting to hear and fun to watch going forward.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Billy. Thanks, Drew, as always. You guys, thank you so much for tuning in today and listening. As always, I will have linked in the show notes ways you can find Billy on social media, ways you can connect with Aurora Financial Strategies if you're interested. You can find all of this and more over at larisonmedia.com. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.